So I'm working on installing crown molding around the perimeter of the room, recessed down some from the ceiling, and we're going to use the Philips Hue strip lights to go around the perimeter inside the crown molding. This is the lights, and this is the crown molding that I mocked up. So this is the profile, and I chose this profile, but we have to use a router to round off this part and this part on the wood. Plug, and this is the controller for the lights. And I'll have to be able to get my hand up through the crown molding to plug it in to that outlet that is controlled by this switch here. So I'm using a stud finder to mark the studs using a piece of tape directly above the stud finder where I locate the center of the stud. I'll have a link below to the stud finder I used. Alright, so this piece has been cut on 45s on both ends. The one is going to be for a scarf joint, and the other is for the miter for the corner. And when I place this up here, I have a line that I use as a reference, really just to get a measurement. I measured that at 5.5 inches. So I'm going to place a block that I cut to 5.5 inches on one end, and block over here in the middle. So I'm just going to put a couple buttons in place. So I'm using my Craftsman pneumatic nailer. Okay, so I'm going to use these same blocks when I nail 2.5 inches in, and I'll do the same thing. I need to get a piece cut to here on this corner. So this is an inside miter and an outside miter. Alright, so I cut this piece, we'll see if it works. If I do too much, you're going to see a lot of caulk. If it's perfect, then you'll barely see any caulk. And that's the build out right there, and that gives us plenty of room for the lights to fit and for the power supply to get plugged in up there, so I don't have to build out around the power supply. Alright, so I could measure this, but it's better to take the board, lay it on top, and make a mark exactly where you want the cut to be. And I usually do a couple passes, maybe 3 passes of cutting, so that I'm not short. I like to have as good a joints as I can get without using caulk. And here I'm just continuing the process of marking the studs. We're going to use this piece here, this opposite piece, for ensuring proper height along the length. Alright, I got this piece cut, fits nicely. Use my measuring block here, get a proper fit. So I'm taking measurements here. This is for the 2 outside pieces. One's going to be an inside miter and outside miter, and the opposite. And now that I have the pieces cut, I'm using the measuring block to ensure proper placement of the second level, and I'm just going to nail some spots along the way. I try to keep it in line with the studs just in case it happens to go through. I do want it to hit a stud, but I'm using 2-inch nails. And considering that each piece is 3/4 inch thick, that's 1.5 inches. The drywall is 1/2 inch, so chances of a nail going into a step on the second level are really small. I don't want the nails too high because I don't want it to be in the way of the LED lighting that I run. So one thing I do wish I did, you may want to consider doing this, painting the wood ahead of time, or at least painting the top part of the wood, because when you have the white light reflecting off of the wood, it gives a tannish hue to the ceiling because of the reflection of the tan wood. So that right there is how high I want the crown molding from the bottom of the second piece of wood. So I'll just make a little block to match this profile. So I got this block that I need. I'll just use this. Line this up at the bottom. Now working on the cutting crown molding, you have to understand the angles that you need to cut using a compound miter saw, but I use the miter saw, just the miter, and I'll demonstrate that in another video, how to cut the inside and outside cuts. But here's a picture of what an inside cut and outside cut looks like. Taking the measurements, you try to get the measurement from some reference point. I'm using like the bottom corner as a reference point. So when I cut it on the miter saw, it's pretty much exact. But I do it in such a way that I have to make 2 or 3 cuts. I don't mind making multiple cuts. I'd rather not waste material. So I cut it a little bit oversized, and then I might take half a blade off or a blade off to get it the correct size. So here I'm just testing what it's going to look like for a section. This is one section of lighting that I connected up to the Philips Hue. Alright, I'm continuing along with the crown molding. This is an inside miter that I cut, and in the middle there's a scarf joint, and a scarf joint is nothing more than a 45-degree cut that you would make in the middle of baseboard to miter it. So one is an outside miter, one's an inside miter, and they overlap, so it doesn't appear like a butt joint. It's a little bit more appealing. Not likely you're going to see the joint. Alright, that gap in the upper corner of the crown molding, what I did to fix that is I used cyanoacrylate glue, which is super glue, and I put it in between the joint, and then I used a series of wood blocks to stack above the crown molding on both the left and the right side to create some force from the ceiling, and that fixed the problem. Alright, so I'm caulking now, and the reason why you want to caulk is you want to fill in all the gaps, so that to the eye it's really tough to tell that there is a gap. Kind of fakes you out a little bit. I'm using a set of tools from DAP. That's a caulk shaping tool, and you can see that little blue thing that I'm using there. I'm using a sharp edge, but it has an advantage. If I apply a dab of caulk to a flat surface, I can scrape it off, and the caulk, you cannot tell that it was used to fill in a hole. So I use that in all the nail holes and along the profile of the crown molding or the casing. So now I'm setting up the Hue lights. I just want to get them working and identify how to set them up. This is the kit that I got. This is one length with the controller and the power supply. I have 2 of these plus 11 other shape lights. This is a kit I ordered off of Amazon. It's Amazon certified. This is a set of 3 of the Philips Hue light bulbs. and the bridge. And the bridge is required to communicate from the app to the controllers and to the light bulbs. Alright, so this is a set of light bulbs and the bridge. So this bridge we have to connect up wirelessly, I'm sure. Alright, so we have the adapter. Connect the lane. Alright, I got the Hue bridge plugged into the network. It has the internet lit. And I open the Philips Hue app. It automatically searches for the bridge. Let's do setup. Push the button on the Hue. Okay, I agree, sure, update. Room type. Okay, so now we're going to set up the room. So let's go with Music Studio. Okay, 3 lights. Yep. Save. What do you mean unreachable? What's this unreachable mean? It sees it, but it says it's unreachable. Dude, it's right there. Alright, so thanks for watching this video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Leave a comment if it helped you. If you've done similar installations, what problems you've had. Like I said, the joints on the crown molding I fixed with cyanoacrylate glue. I'll include that at the end of the video here. Most importantly, make sure you subscribe. And check back in the future for more videos about the music studio and my YouTube studio redo that'll be coming up.
Thanks, Johnny.
Here I'm stacking just pieces of wood flooring with the foam piece up at the ceiling and taped with painter's tape so I don't mar the finish of the paint on the ceiling. I jammed them in there to bring the profile of the crown molding down so that it'll meet evenly with the other side when that's pulled down. I do the same thing stacking the pieces in the other side, but I don't put in the last piece, a thin piece that will totally clamp it down. I wait to put that piece in until I apply glue. Now I don't have a good angle here, but I'm using cyanoacrylate glue that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's the slow dry. I put a ton in there. I'm applying it now. You can barely see it. And I'm making sure that it fills the gap. And any drips that came through to the surface, I quickly wiped off. You wouldn't be able to tell anyway. And then I installed the last piece of the flooring in the left stack to the left of the joint, and that created pressure to close the joint between the two pieces of crown molding. I let that sit overnight. I could have used the accelerator, but I chose not to. I let it sit overnight and took the pieces off, and it's perfect. The joint did not separate. It is sealed. And I went over it with caulk because the joint wasn't exactly perfect. I could see the tiniest gap. But that's what you want to do anyway. You always want to apply caulk to any molding that you do to give it a professional look. I'm really satisfied with this solution, so hopefully you'll be able to use this in the future if you do recessed crown molding. Thanks again for watching.